You guys able to see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So here's our project that we worked on. We built a new web service, and then let's see. I don't know if it's gonna look like this. Okay, I'll just slide it. I'm not gonna do a slideshow. So yeah, the web service project that we created was me, Arthur, Pranab, and Raj. And then we used some tools to create all this stuff. We created an AWS EC2 instance. We used Python, Flask. We used PostMan to do the test, and then SoapUI, Visual Studio Code we used for Karate to automate the test cases. Java Development Kit, of course, obviously NetBeans, Maven, Jenkins, Lambda, API Gateway through Amazon, and also WhatsApp to communicate through the team, and PowerPoint, obviously. So the web service that we developed, it's about video games, REST API using Python Flask. It contains a few video games. We named it, we put like what year was established, and we did some tested about it. And then we have SOAP API, we have calculator REST API using AWS Lambda. That's the only part that I don't have it in my machine. Raj has it, so we can share it with you later, Tushar. And then we created a contract, which is, as we know, there should be a contract, web service contract between two parties, whoever is building the web service and whoever is using the web service. So as far as that it has a URL, API URL. Here, I'm just gonna show. I'm just gonna go through like how is it gonna work and how they're gonna use it. The home should be, get with description returns a welcome message and brief description of the API. That's just as a welcome. And then get all games. This is the all games. If you see, as we mentioned, when we put all, that will query all the video games that we have. And then a description returns all the available entries in the game catalog. And then get game by ID, we have here, we can mention ID, and then it's gonna query only the game that has this specific ID. And then also the method is get. We also try to add a game, like how to show how to add games. So we're gonna use post method, and then add a new game to the catalog. The game should be provided in JSON format in the request body. Also delete, we try to delete game and also specified ID, and then we use delete method. Request parameters, which is we could put ID integer, like let's say the fifth game, we put number 5 and request. This is the request body, like what it is and what title has, what message that should say. And this is also the response body. What should we get in response? So that's going to be the contract between, the two parties. And the slide is here. We start using the Postman to test, our web service to see if we request some queries, we get the accurate data, we get everything is correct. So if you see here, get all games, it's going to give you all the games here. After we put the URL and we click send, we get all the games that we have. Tushar, you guys still able to hear me and see my screen?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure. And and if you see here, the first one we used get all. Second one, as we said, we use a specific ID, which is here. If we put 5 and click send after we put the URL, we get a specific 5th game in our web service. We use a value. So that's if we want to get a specific one. And then here we used post game. As I mentioned, if we want to add a game to our service, we could specify ID. We could add some like few text and specify what's the name, what's the console, and what's the ID through JSON. We put the body, we put the URL, and we click send. It's gonna say, it should say success true, and the code should be 200. And then that should be added to our web service. And also delete game. We could do delete as we did add, we also can delete. So we're gonna use the delete method, and we put parameter, like let's say 1, and then we're gonna need to delete the first game from our service, and we click send. Also should say 200 in success. And then here we start checking and verifying responses as requested. We need to verify some things. So we can add some few codes here to test, and here are the status test, which is 200, says passed. Response must be valid and have a body. It should be passed, and response body should contain. We could do like string. We could use text, and as you see here, Call of Duty, and I put it right here, and it should say pass. So this is also pass. After we're done from this, we start using testing REST, but in SoapUI. So SoapUI, you could also create and add your API to it, and you start testing. This is also get all method. And then if you see here, get, this is the endpoint, our IP. This is the resource, the URL. And parameters here, we didn't put any parameter because we are requesting the whole thing, get all. So we're going to get everything in here. This is all our web service, all the games. And then here, get by specific ID, just like in Postman, we could do it in SoapUI too. This is ID number 2. If you see here, we didn't have it in the previous slide. This is the resource, and this is also our endpoint, and we are using get. And then after we're done doing all the manual test cases through SoapUI and Postman, we start automating these test cases using Karate. And then Karate would need to use a code editor. Here we are using a Visual Studio. And then we wrote some code. As you see here, we integrate our web service to this code editor, and then we added all the code. And then we start writing these scenarios. This is a GET request to retrieve all games, giving the path, and then when method we're using get, then status should be 200, and then the match response 5, because we have 5 games inside. Scenario number 2, GET request to retrieve a specific game by ID. So just like what we did in manual, we are doing automated here. So this is the ID 2, and then this is the match response. That's the string that we have. Scenario 3, post, we added a game. Scenario 4, delete, we deleted a game, and then it should be 200. We did generate Karate test report. As you see here, we have 4 pass, 0 fail. Each one here separated. This is get all. This is get specific by ID, post, and delete. That's after you're done. You get these response. This is the time that it took. While running. And then after we done all that, we created a CI/CD pipeline. As we know, Jenkins can do all the job for us. We can just mention specific time, specific day, and everything, and then Jenkins will run everything to us. But here we used it as, trigger build. We build couple tests in Jenkins, and then this is our console output. It should say here, response and finish in success. And then here are the Jenkins report. Also shows each and every test case after done. And then as far as observation, learning, challenges, first I'll start with challenges. Usually, not specifically in this project, but usually in any web service project, it should, they should have challenges with the requirements, one of the biggest challenges, as collecting requirements, understand, and, the expected behavior and the actual. So, and then also testing multiple endpoints. Web service test project may involve testing multiple endpoints. Should be a challenge. Handling complex data. Here wasn't really complex because we're not using a huge web service. It just has, but what I'm saying is, each web service will have, JSON, will have XML, WSDLs, and all that stuff. Sometimes it could be complicated. That should be a challenge. In this specific project, we had challenge with, communication and, schedule timing between the team members. And also the learning parts was throughout, we would have to go to different website to do research, to go through any problem. We would have to search a lot. We would have to spend, hours and hours to go through any problem, especially with integrating, Jenkins with, we always have problem with this, Jenkins with, code editor, push, commit, and all that stuff. But overall, this project was, the biggest opportunity to us to, gather everything, connect the dots, and understand everything that would help us in our journey. And then here, I would like to thank you all guys for, listening and giving me the time and the opportunity to present my my presentation. And then I would like to thank my team member. Thank you so much for helping and everything. And I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
So first of all, Ali, thank you for sharing. So when you were working on this, how three of you communicated?
Usually through WhatsApp, but the thing is, we were communicating through WhatsApp, and then, if someone has something to do, the other one is available. And we couldn't, me and Raj, we were connecting, and Arthur, last time we were in the office. I usually, communicate in the office with Raj always there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as far as, online thing, we were sharing through email and we were talking through WhatsApp.
Okay. So in this, if you can go to your PostMan where you were showing the collections and all, did you try data-driven testing somewhere, where you use a CSV file or JSON and substituted the parameters?
No, I did not. But what I was, reading, doing some research, and I found there is something called curls. So we could import it here, and we could add a few in a description language. We add a few lines. I found it, in some the websites, and then I added, so you could now start just get, put the parameters, put the value, and just run it. And you don't have to put it manually every time you want to run it.
Nice, nice. So example, when you're comparing REST versus SOAP, right? What was the big challenge for you compared, you use PostMan, you get a SoapUI, but you mostly tested REST. So could you walk me through what is the big difference between REST versus SoapUI web service?
To be honest, in this project, I did not do SOAP. I found out after all that I was supposed to do SOAP and then do the rest and PostMan. I did it both REST, as you see in the project. But, I remember, we did with, in the class, we did some SOAP test. But to be honest, I think PostMan is more flexible, more, it's more obvious. You could tell, you could use, you could change. I don't know. I feel like SOAP, it looks like something old to work with, but Post is more fun to work with.
Got it. And when you are testing what you call the service with PostMan, I saw you are mostly doing the correct JSON or correct payload. Did you try negative test cases where you send something incorrect and you get a fault or you get an error as a response?
I did, but not like it wasn't intentionally. It was I get failed test cases while I'm working until I find what's the problem to correct it. But intentionally, no, I did not put false information to test. I usually do, but with this project, I tried to put everything, all the positive ones.
And let's say if I give you one extra month, what would you add additional in this project?
I will make it bigger. I will put more data to it, try to see how it's gonna react, and try to do, more stuff with, do the data driven, just like you asked, add a CSV file and have it run it. And then also add more plugins to Jenkins and see how it's gonna run.
Raj, you were saying something?
Yes, I wasn't sure if you could hear me or not.
Yeah, I can hear you.
So the data driven, we did try in karate. I tried to read a file, read the JSON, and I know Python, the spaces and the tabs. I think it's very sensitive to that. So for some reason, when I did input information from a file, it wasn't reading for like a. I tried so many different formats of that same JSON, but then I turned it off and I turned it back on, and it was reading from the file. So I thought that was very interesting. The other thing you said about SOAP versus
REST.
SOAP REST. Yeah, so I feel like SOAP is very easy as far as in SoapUI and PostMan, because if you just put in the WSDL file and all the assertions are already there, so it doesn't require many script and programming as far as doing the testing. And then one more thing, if we had more time, I think I would be more thorough with, like Ali was saying, the reports, because I couldn't get, we just got the karate report. I don't know if it's just in the program itself, but we were having a lot of trouble. I think I spent 2 days with Jenkins.
Oh yeah, me too.
So I think, we would try to get that better. And then other thing was I was looking online and researching all the different kind of assertions and different kinds of tests that we can do. So if we had more time, I would, learn about those tests and use them in PostMan, because I know there's a lot of ways and a lot of things that you can test, and we just did like very basic ones.
Yeah, the time was the best challenge to us, and especially after like we were supposed to be like 6 people and we left only a couple, so with that short time, so we had a challenge to try eat like a small sample from each, so just to make it look good for you.
Yeah, so could you go to your what do you call karate screen, maybe slide number 9 or 8, where you have karate?
9.
Yeah, no, sorry, it passed through. I think, could you go up one? Yeah, this one. So in karate, like example, first of all, what's the difference between Postman versus karate, and why would you use karate?
Because karate is just like when you do like manual test case in a real life, and then here you do a manual and Postman. Here you could do automated, so you just write this code and have it run it. Like you can run it anytime. You have it standard, and it's the code is gonna run it every time you want. So it's just basically the difference is this is manual, this is automation.
And in karate, like the language you are using, do you know the name of the language where you say given, when, then, and?
That's Gherkin.
Yeah, Gherkin. And it's very popular in the industry, because nowadays you are getting like in Agile acceptance criteria in this form, given, when, then. So having that, it's easy. And you might have seen that in karate, you don't have to write code at all. Just write this thing and just run it. Amazingly simple. And this is like make life easy if somebody say API testing or web service testing using Karate, once you set it up Karate, it's a piece of cake, right? Because it has a so diversify options available where you can do assertion, varieties of way assertion, like, it's dollar parameter, content, number, count, all those things, and make life easy for API or / web service tester. I hope you can do more as you go further, but overall, very good job. I see you integrated Karate with Jenkins. Did you add any plugin in Jenkins in order to enable the Karate executions and report?
To be honest, Tushar, until last night, I could do. I saw the green check mark until last night, so I barely could do the HTTP stuff.
I see.
Yeah.
But
that's the only plugin. That's why I ask you, if you give me more time, I would just add more plugins. I would just search for more plugins just to see how it looks.
Yes, Raj, you were saying something?
Yeah, for the most difficult part, I think, for me with Jenkins was I hadn't used Jenkins in a while, but getting the Karate and Eclipse actually formatted correctly, just how Eclipse calls the Karate file, the feature files, and you can get that to work correctly, then Jenkins was actually, this project was very simple in Jenkins. It was same thing as you had in on YouTube, as the Jenkins tutorial that you have on YouTube. It was exactly the same thing, but it was a matter of getting Eclipse and Karate set up correctly.
Yeah, perfect. So first of all, congratulations, guys. What you have accomplished in a less than a week, right? It's kind of learning, performing, and doing it. You have tried various tools like REST tool, SOAP, in your case, PostMan, SoapUI, Karate. You have tried various tools. You also use programming language like Python, and you have also used Flask. Given time, you could have used AWS Lambda and all. That's all in industry people are looking. You also define contract. You also know how to pass header and inputs and payload and JSON and all. So first of all, keep learning it. In your forum, if you see, there is one video about 50 questions for web service interview. If you start preparing and update your resume, and I'm pretty confident if you get an opportunity in interview, you will do awesome, because I don't think any additional questions people will ask, because you already have gone through the journey, and the questions are in my video, which will definitely help you. Web service interview is quite easy because you already use this Postman and other tools. So mostly they ask tool related questions and most of the service related questions. All videos are in our websites like forum, like how to differentiate between REST versus SOAP, how to differentiate stateless versus stateful, and also please go through that and keep updating your resume. Awesome job. So give a big round to this group, guys. They work very hard. So thank you so much for doing all this work. And now Mahashweta
will start.
Okay, perfect.
Shweta, is your mic on?
No.
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Hello, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So we are going to present our web service project for API testing and web service testing. In our group, we have myself and Tenzin, Matthew, and Ola. So I'm going to talk about web service first, a smaller discussion about the web service. So what is web service? Web service is a service that's on the web, but what is the difference between web service versus web application? So web application is needed, used by the human, versus web service is consumed by the computer. It's for the communication from computer to computer. So why do we need to test a web service? Just like we need to test the web application for the verification and validation purposes, same reason we need to make sure that the quality of the web service is also good. So this is the reason why we need to test the web application. Web services. What kind of web services out there in the market? I would say there is like one is a REST web service, and other one is SOAP-based web service. To test the REST web service, people use mainly the PostMan, and to test the SOAP web service, we use widely the SoapUI, which both are the manual method of testing the web service. And we are also going to talk about the Karate tool that also helps with the automated testing for the web service. So this is the, we started, we made a contract using the Microsoft Word. We started making the contract for the two parties. The contract is for the, it's made by the BA, once they agree upon what they needs to be done, then they decide the contract, and based upon the contract, then we created the web service using the Python Flask. And then using the Postman tool, we tested the web service. So we used different criteria to get all items of the web service, and we ran the test, and all the test passes. Also, I made another web service for the IT expert location, where we can have a various location, who is the director versus who is the, what is the address and phone number, and we can get all information for the get all location. You can get one specific location, you can add a location, we can delete the location. We did various tests, and also ran like a report for the whole like a collection, and come up with the report where we do the multiple iteration and how long it takes, and how much time in between. So this is the another report we come up with for the IT expert locations. Then for the SOAP, we use the ready-made WSDL, web service description language, from the internet, and then ran various test cases for this one. And we did a negative case one to show that yes, if you give the wrong input, it's supposed to fail. So here is the report with the whole suite passing most of the cases, and one is failing, which is the negative test case. And this is another example of the SoapUI test case, where it shows how long it takes for the test to pass. In this one, we did a load test running, so it shows whether it passed or not with different parameters with the multiple threads, and we can put more threads and do the more load testing. And here is another example that where you can export the file and do the test case. And from one of my co-worker, Tenzin, she found manual testing the error right here in the SoapUI website, which was very good. Now I'm going to pass it over to Tenzin. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now. Hang on. Okay, hi everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, hi. So I'll be talking about Lambda. So for Lambda, I just had a very simple.
Are you sharing screen?
Yes.
We are not able to see. At least I'm not able to see.
Okay, give me 1 second. Hang on. Now are you able to?
Yes.
Yeah, now
yes.
I forgot to click on the button. So yeah, I'll be talking about Lambda, and I created a very simple function And my parameters, as you can see, were about our project. If the event was a smile and the value you put interesting, you would get, we did it. Otherwise, it could be better, or an invalid response. So, and then when we tested it in API Gateway, it did work. We put the parameters in the test body. And then after that, after the URL is generated, we took it to PostMan and we tested it there as well. And also in Lambda, you have the feature of checking your logs. So as you can see, I have like ran it again and again. So if you ever want to go back and see what you did when, what error you faced at what time, I thought this was a helpful detail. And then for the Node.js, again, it was just a simple line. I just put in a line and then tested it again with the help of API Gateway and Postman. And I tried to change the criteria a little bit. Here, if you'll see, it just says all the best on the job hunt. And then I tried to change it a little bit to say good luck on the job hunt to see whether, you know, it would take the changes. First, I couldn't figure it out. So, and then it did work in the end. Again, yeah, we tested it out in the Postman, the Node.js, and it seemed to work fine as well. And the API Gateway, you have a documentation option as well. These are just the basic ones that we just put in. You could put different parameters. You could make it longer, however you liked it. This was just for the presentation purposes. I just kept it really short. So you could always add more to this. And also you have a graph. This is very small because since we had only 1 week to make it and test it, the graph is pretty short and weak. Yeah, so these are the definitions of what the graphs and what the these mean, the latencies, what the errors, API calls, how many calls we had. And again, also the API documentation, the gateway, API gateway documentation, you can also export it as a JSON or YML or however you want to export it. Moving on to Karate, like everybody else said, it seemed pretty simple at the start because you just needed a few words given when then. But when we actually got down to working on it, I found that Karate, I had the toughest time because figuring out their error message was the hardest for me. So when it was working fine, it was good. But when it wasn't, it took me days to figure out why it wasn't working. And then I tried to put in like pretty simple parameters. And then here you can see it showed me some errors. And as you can see on the timestamp, it says April 2nd at 9:30 p.m. And I finally figured it out today at 12:30 a.m. midnight. So yeah, I had a hard time with the Karate figuring out the error message, although it was just a simple, whatever, something, simple something. As far as Jenkins, again, Jenkins was very difficult, as Raj said, for us as well. We tried to figure it out. I don't know, as you can see from the screen, I had made one, it didn't work, made another one, didn't work, made one, it seemed to be working. We're not sure whether it is or not, but we did get the green checks. So, but if we had more time, we would be trying to make Jenkins work better. We had, like, since we hadn't had any experience with Eclipse, it was hard trying to learn a new tool and perform some tests. Again, since we just got it running, like literally a few hours, that's why this statistics page looks pretty bland. But if we had more time and more days to work on it, the graph would look much better. And now I'll pass it on to Ola.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you.
Ola, are you sharing your screen or do I share my screen? How does it work?
No. Kindly share your screen.
Me? Okay.
Yes, thank you. So, thank you, Tenzin and Sweta, for the presentation. And as it has been discussed, while this labs are very, very good and useful to use. They still have their pros and cons. And they still have their cons. So, and to start from Postman, we can say it is free and easy to use, user-friendly interface, good documentation features. As well as SoapUI, it is very, very fast to do complex simulations and create web service in just, it is easy to use to create web service within just few minutes. And as well as being said about Postman, it is also very, very easy to use and easy to locate code errors. As well as Karate as well, it is also easy to complete tests within few simple tests. Detail logs reporting, not much programming knowledge required. And Lambda, it is also easy to use, easy to execute small tasks very, very quickly, and can be incredibly cheap, just as we know. The next slide, please. Yeah, so these are their cons. Just like discussed, Postman, first off, has database, it has less unsuitable, it is less unsuitable for database verification and connectivity. As well as when we're talking about the disk usage, we could all notice that the disk usage for Postman is extremely high, which occasionally causes the computer to fade or flicker. So I think it would be good if they can produce a slimmer version. And the third cons we notice is it doesn't have the ability to generate random data like email, zip code, address, and etc. Such as SoapUI as well. The cons include improvements in the UI, and at times one doesn't know if the message has been sent. So that is what we discovered. And no history of executed test. Talking about Karate, it is hard finding errors. And secondly, it uses its own scripting language. And thirdly, there is no IntelliSense support on IDE. So, and Lambda, no controller environment, execution can take longer time, initial understanding takes time, in as well as it is easy to use. At times, initial understanding can take time. Next slide, please. Key learning and challenges. First off, creating APIs before the actual testing process. And the second key learning is implementing 6 weeks of learning within 1 week. Actually, this is kind of challenging because it is a project that could have been done within a month or thereabouts, but due to the deadline, we have to make sure we deliver this within a week, which is in turn like a key learning that we can still work fast and accomplish our goals. Secondly, team coordination. This is also a kind of challenging because coordinating the team based on everyone's availability due to each and everyone's job schedule and day-to-day schedule, but eventually we're still able to fix meeting times, talk about the project, and delegate responsibilities till the completion of the project. And lastly, communication gap, and which was due to at times there was kind of misinterpretation of task to be carried out, and the time each team member is available, and such as other circumstances. But yeah, as everything has been said, at the end of the day, we're able to complete this project with this fantastic team members. Thank you.
Yeah, so
Any questions?
First of all, good job, guys. Overall, looks like all three presenters did a good job. I like about how you also use AWS and you also have done SoapUI performance. So the question is, when you develop the web service, what are the key things you need to consider?
We need
When we're
the
Go ahead,
contract.
Shraddha.
Go ahead, Tenzin, sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say the same thing. If it's about any generic web service, it would be about having like a good contract in place to begin with, and then also deciding on what type of a web service do you want to provide, and accordingly you choose how to implement it, which tools to use, and how to go about it, I would say.
So this question for Marshweta, like why would somebody use then Lambda? Because it looks like Python Flask service is simple and easy to do. Then why would I use Lambda?
Lambda is for small micro function, small microservice. So it's small, but you can reuse multiple times, and it charges only when you send the request instead of the other web service. As soon as you turn it on, it sends you the charging.
So why we have to use API gateway, and what benefit API gateway gives?
Oh, API gateway. I don't know. Help me, Tenzin.
I think the API gateway, after you create your function in Lambda, in API gateway, you make your URL, so you can test it. You can add, post, this all delete methods, and you can test like we did with PostMan, and then also to generate reports or add more criteria to your documentation.
Very good. So Tenzin, you mentioned that while you were doing end-to-end integration using Jenkins,
Yes.
you ran with some issues. Can you walk through a couple of issues? What are the key issues you faced?
First of all, it was, I think, just figuring out, this is the first time really I was using Eclipse. And first of all, my Jenkins was not downloading for some reason. From the last time, it was just not working. So last night at 9 o'clock, I went to my neighbor's house and made him do something to my computer to get Jenkins to work. So from last night, 10:30, he fixed it for me. So I was like literally up till 4 o'clock in the morning trying to figure out. Today I was there. So my problem was more than the testing itself, it was the working off the tool that took a lot of time. So I feel like I spend more time trying to figure out, troubleshoot one thing, then something else breaks, troubleshoot that. And then the testing period was very short. So when I coded, like I put in the codes, it would work. Half an hour later, I come back, something else is breaking. And so like, I didn't think we would be able to do the Jenkins integration. That's why you saw my screen, like had like done it a couple different times through the day. Didn't work. So suddenly, like, just I think about an hour ago, it started to work, and I'm like still trying to figure out what went right, that it started working again. But yeah, I think it was more trying. I think we need to, if I had more time with Jenkins, I think it would have been a better looking, like a report with more tests.
Yes. Did you install any plugin in Jenkins in order to run the?
I did JUnit, and what else did I do? I know I did JUnit because I was trying to generate the reports, and I like went to look for it. So I know I saw JUnit, but no, I don't know what I did in the night, but. Suddenly it said my Java something was not working in the code base in Eclipse. So I was trying to fix that. Then my Git, I couldn't push it to the Git repository because I forgot my password. So Eclipse kicked me out. So then I had to find a work around it. Then I was talking to Raj, asking for his help, how he pushed it to Git. And then I figured that out. And then finally afternoon, I started kind of working on Jenkins.
Got it. Got it. Now you mentioned about karate that you said like they initially started like easy, but then it complicated. Could you walk through what problem or challenge did you face during karate?
Karate, it was for me, when you write the basic, the syntax, the BDT syntax, it was okay. Like you just write when, then, given. But when you try to add the parameters, like every little space makes a difference. But to figure out which space was a little bit tough because the way karate, I guess, words their error message, I had a hard time trying to figure it out. But so then I had to, like, without looking at the error message they were giving me, I was just trying to figure out it's an error. Okay, let me see everything all over again. So I was like, trying to internally figure out what I did wrong rather than see the message and what could go wrong, because I couldn't understand the message. That's why, like, even a simple task took me some time trying to figure out what their error message was trying to say. But when I stopped doing that and started just figuring it out on myself, it kind of worked.
Very good.
Yeah.
Ola, this question for you. What was the fun part in this project, Ola? Ola, you're in mute. Ola doesn't want to talk. So Mahasweta, what was the fun part about this project?
Fun part for me to getting together and like finding somebody who is working even harder than me. That was fun part for me. So
Yeah.
I'm so thankful for Tenzin. She really worked very hard. And I mean, I felt like all other projects I was on her spot, like thinking and overthinking. But Tenzin gave me big relief. I'm not going to stop from here. I know that, but it was fun part for a change.
Very nice. Very nice. Now, this is overall, both group has done a great job. So first of all, kudos to you. Let's give a big round to this group also, because it takes time. It takes time and it requires commitment. So kudos to both groups.